Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, traders from across the globe, and welcome to the 1077th edition of Looking at Charts with you guys. Traders, we know futures trading is risky, can cause substantial financial loss. It is not suitable for all trading accounts, and if you don't use stops, a day like today will make you want to rip your hair out. Always use stops. They are about the only thing that keep you in this game. Traders, we're looking at the NASDAQ. NASDAQ, very, very interesting what we see here today. Last night the market opened a lot higher. We opened here. So let me put this in perspective. Remove today's bar. Here's what we had as of Friday's close. The market opened up here, way up here, and just took off for a while. So let's break this down a little bit. What exactly do we have? Well, what we had was a really nice channel that got broken out of. If you will, it was also part of a head and shoulders head test that the head test, of course, failed. It wasn't a head and it just kept on going. So you've got a few things going on here. So you get the head and shoulders head test. It gets above the head. That's a sign it's going to keep on going. You had this channel, pretty strong market, right? Well, let's take some of this stuff away. So what does it morph into? If you look at this, it now morphs into what I would expect to call a bull flag. So now we're looking at NASDAQ still from Friday night. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what's going to happen on Sunday night for Monday, but we take away the channel and recognize that it's actually now a bear flag. A bull flag that has morphed. Here's your flagpole. Here's your flag. So now we have a bull flag at the top of that channel after a head and shoulders head test that breaks out, and on top of it, look at what it does here. It takes out all-time highs, represented by the purple line. So if you expect me to come in on Sunday night and call that bearish, of course not. Couldn't possibly happen, right? Now, what happens next? I've got my analysis done. Omni's got its Omni done. We know where we're getting in if the world is normal. And on Sunday, we open up somewhere in the area. But Sunday, the market did this. It opened up here. Now, the bottom of this doesn't exist yet, right? We opened up here, and there is a gap. So again, I'm going to erase that so that we can take a look at this for what it did. It actually opened up and had a gap and went up. Let's just make that look more like a bar. So well, here's the situation last night. It gaps up higher. Now, what are you supposed to do with a market that gaps up higher? This is the NASDAQ and the S&P. It doesn't have gaps. Gaps get filled almost immediately. So what is somebody to do? Well, when I look at what's going on here and I put those channel lines back on and I do all the homework that has to be done, I realize that this thing has broken out. It's up above the channel. It's well above the flag. And if it's going to do anything, it's going to try to come down and fill the gap. And if it does, it's going to hit the gap and take off. Because that's usually what any indice will do. It fills its gaps and takes off. So looking at that, I had to redo the analysis, right? We open up higher. I redo the analysis. I go, okay, now buy into the dip. When the market starts to dip, I figure right about here, we start playing buy. And we buy right around here. And we put our stop under the gap. So that's what we did. I just wanted to buy this. I said, all right, if you're going to open higher, I can't touch it now, but I can buy it when it does that. So that's what our trade was today. The problem is it just kept going. I'm going to add today in. Look, it just kept going. It's all the way down to here now, to the bottom of the flag. So if it was only NASDAQ, you would think, oh my goodness, that's a failure. That's an exhaustion gap. It opened up, it exhausted higher and broke. But really it didn't, because if you look at the other markets, now I don't know what we're going to see on this chart. We'll just erase it and start over if it's ugly. Oh, it's clean. This one didn't even get close to filling its gap yet. I didn't want to play the S&P because where are you going to buy that? It's got a nosedive to fill a gap. NASDAQ was much closer. By the way, this is the emini S&P daily. So NASDAQ was going to come in and fill its gap, and I figured it's going to fill the gap as it gets into the channel that I showed you. That's the safe bet and it's only $20 a point, as opposed to this monster at $50 a point. So we went with that NASDAQ trade, and this does not look like NASDAQ, right? This looks like a market that's doing exactly what a market should do when it breaks out. Come back slowly, fill that gap, and explode. But NASDAQ had Apple, and we got APPLEDAQ'd. And I'll do a little video on Apple tonight. We'll go get some Apple. I'll show you why Apple did what it did, punched us in the eye. We got stopped out in our NASDAQ trade. But this is 99.9% Apple right here. And no excuses being made at all whatsoever. I chose to go with NASDAQ over Russell, over S&P, over anything else that we could have traded, and every other index is up right now except for NASDAQ. So my bad for calling the NASDAQ. You know, nothing I can say about that. NASDAQ is right now down on the day. And everything else is up. Look, right now NASDAQ is down 1275. ES, well, that's not the trade I wanted to show you. ES is up 7. And if I go through the board, you'll see the whole thing is this way. We're up in all of the other indices, although that, you know, that's right back into the flag. This is Russell now. You're right back into a flag. You know, that's not scary at all. That's the way it's supposed to happen. Just NASDAQ didn't work. NASDAQ just got pummeled. So, of course, we'll have to see what's going to happen here. The day's not over, but a good bull market will fill that gap and go the other way. So back to that NASDAQ trade. Wild card right here, most of it is Apple. If I am right about Apple right now, it is down a huge amount. It is down 17 full points, and the weight of Apple just pulled down our NASDAQ. What a shame, what a shame. But the rest of the markets, I think, will pull through. We will see where that goes. Traders, I wanted to show this to you because on a day like today, where we get stopped out and the one index that goes down where everything else blasts off, we have to go figure out what's going on here. So, you know, if I pull up an Apple chart, I mean, you would clearly see, it would take probably a few moments. I can do that if you want real quick. You'd clearly see where we were now and the fact that it broke something that you wouldn't have expected it to break. So let's pull up any chart, and then we'll go pull an Apple chart. Let's see if I have one in here. I'm sure I've got one saved. I've got a whole bunch of Apple charts. Let's just pull up the first one in my list. I'm sure that's one of many. All right, here's where Apple was on Friday, just this Friday. You know, you just don't really expect it to easily take out the 200 bar moving average. You know, it doesn't usually easily take out something like that. But instead, it didn't just take it out. If you look at Apple's chart right now, it's got a bar on it right now that's like, wha-bam. I mean, it is down there. So, you know, Apple knocked our NASDAQ out of the park on us. So anyway, we will see. Look at S&P chart line. Well, we'll take a look at S&P chart line for you if you want. What chart line are you looking at? Are you looking at this one down here? On a you want me to look at an S&P line chart? And let's expand on that a little bit. Well, what's wrong with that? Who wouldn't like that look right now? A series of higher highs and higher lows, except for this one, all the way through. NQ line chart. We'll look at an NQ line chart for you guys, no problem. Yeah, it certainly looks different. But look, you've got Apple all over NQ. It doesn't have a mind of its own anymore. NQ is a slave. It's NAPPLEDAQ. This market is back to what it was doing about a year ago when Apple first toppled, or yeah, about a year ago, when Apple first toppled and it started to beat up NASDAQ when everything else was going higher. But listen, these are previous highs. You know, if you look at a line chart, and if this line chart extends down to here and hits this, you really think that that's a major catastrophe for a market that's been moving up for all this time? You know, so you look at a NASDAQ line chart, it looks that way. I don't think the rest of them do. Well, the tranny line chart, well, there's too much stuff on there. Sorry, guys. That's me working on my chart. That won't work. Let me see if I can do it with an industrial average chart. Too much stuff on that one too. It's just me being a lunatic doing my usual stuff. And you know what? Let's try this guy. There you go. Let's do an S&P cash chart, line chart. Let me ask you a question. Traders, does anyone see a problem with this S&P cash chart right here? Anybody at all think that that looks like the end of the world coming? I don't care what the little man in the back of your head says. Shut him up and use your eyes for a moment and tell me what you think about this chart. Do you think that this looks like a chart that's coming to the end of its life? Because I don't see that when I look at this chart. I see a chart that looks really healthy. I see a chart that starts down here and just continues to work its way up. It has little dips like any bull market does, and the bigger the bull market, the higher the bull market, the deeper the dips that come. But I don't know. I'm not afraid of that. Anybody in this room afraid of this chart right here? That doesn't scare me. Now, you know what would scare me? A complete failure and a breakdown lower than this low. If we failed here and did this and got lower than this low, that would scare me. And it would also mean that you just took out this low. So, if you did that, that would worry me. But the way this chart looks now, if the top comes, it'd be pretty surprising to me. That doesn't look like a top market to me. Not yet. So, anything else you guys want me to look at while we're working this chart session? Well, we can do gold. Oh. Let's look at gold. Let's remove some stuff. When you look at gold, that is the opposite of the S&P. You want to look at line charts? So let's look at line charts. It makes it a lot easier to see what's going on. If you wanted to put people in a portfolio, if you had your grandpa's money and wanted to put it in a portfolio, wouldn't you be long that chart we just looked at and short this one? Wouldn't that make sense? Anybody have a problem with thinking that if you had to position a big portfolio, that just using your eyes, this would make sense to be short and this would make sense to be long? Does anyone have a problem with this? Because I don't know. That's the way I see it. I use my eyes only over my personality and over what I read in the newspapers and certainly over what the lunatics on TV tell us about. And a lot of people in the chat room, I close my eyes to that too, because that you cannot convince me is a bear market no matter how nervous you get. Doesn't matter to me. So anyway, just thought I'd show you this stuff. We're not in any crash mode. We're not in anything but an NAPPLEDAQ punch in the eye. If we were in S&P today, we would have smiled. If we were in any other market, we would have had a chance to score. We were in NASDAQ and it got NAPPLEDAQ'd once again. Go back to a normal looking chart that I can understand. I'm kidding. Line charts are very simple. And this is not the end of the stock market. This is Apple reacting to an indice that's just got too much Apple weighted inside of it. Remember, you're still just back into a bull flag. That's it. You didn't do any damage here at all. You're back into a bull flag. Our sell in gold, we had a sell level in gold at 1339 today. Go back to gold for just a second. We got so close. Wow. All it needed to do was go this line's meaningless. I was just showing you where the market's moving. All it needed to go was just a tad higher. Just right about there. We would have been in on the right side of the shoulder because all I was trying to do is use the Omni to get in on this side of this shoulder. It was an easy trade for me, I thought. You know what I mean? I was like, all right, I got a good one here. The Omni's pointing straight down. The right shoulder's building. We're getting short gold today. I know it. I can feel it. Omni pulls a trade at 1339. And the high, 1336. We didn't get in. We were really close, though. That's what happened to gold today. Otherwise, we should have been short because, I mean, there's lots of reasons to be short gold here. You broke the channel. All right, forget about the head and shoulders. Maybe you don't believe in those. You broke the channel. You're creating a new channel on the way down, and look what happens to the new channel. It's kind of getting broken already because that's what it was. Now you broke that channel. What comes next? You got to start expanding. You got to go out to weeklies. You got to go, well, what is coming next? You know, there's all sorts of work that needs to be done when you're chasing a gold market around. Well, we never chase. When you're hunting down a gold trade. So, all right, traders. So that's what I wanted to show you. Thank you so much for showing up today. You know, I'm sorry I chose NASDAQ over the other markets. Everything else is up today. My bad on that. You know, I'm sorry about it. Anyway, come on down to livewithoscar.com. Come into my free trading room and allow me to help you get stopped out in the NASDAQ just like we did today. All right, traders, enough of that. Always remember, keep your emotions out of trading. One of the best things you can do to help yourselves with that is say this to yourselves every morning, every afternoon, every evening, and you know what that is. Help me out here, guys. Stops are in. Emotions are out. Thank you so much for coming, traders, and we will punch right back this evening. You stick around.